the Liberals' election disaster in Victoria, yet another election disaster. Well, today, 2 days later, we saw what to me seems a reaction and a healthy one. You see, so many people on the Conservative side are sick of seeing the Liberals trying to be Labor-lite, selling out and still getting smashed. You don't get victory and you don't keep your pride. Well, in Canberra today, the National Party said, well, that's enough. We're going to defy the media and fight for the values that define us. And they said no to racism, no to dividing Australians by race, and no to Labor's plan to create an Aboriginal-only parliament called The Voice. Every Nationals MP today lined up behind their colleague, Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, and, well, you listen to how compelling a politician can be when they speak with passion and insight on matters of high principle, even when the whole ABC is against them.
We are part of a liberal, democratic Australia. And one of our fundamental principles is that we are all regarded as equal under the law, despite race, despite gender, despite anything else. And why should I, as an Indigenous Australian, be governed under a separate entity than the rest of Australia because of my race? We are here to serve Australian citizens of all backgrounds, and it is not right to divide us along the lines of race, especially within our Australian founding document.
Now, the Nationals may win this argument or they may lose it. After all, most newspapers are backing this racist parliament, and so is corporate Australia. And Nationals leader David Littleproud, well, he knows all that, but he still said, well, damn it, this is important. And what are the Nationals worth if they don't at least fight for their beliefs?
I'm proud to be the leader of a party that has the courage to come forward and to say we stand with those Indigenous Australians to make sure they get their lives better, not actually be symbolic.
Now, I started with that because it's such a contrast to what we've seen from the Liberals almost throughout Australia. You would think by now that the Liberals realise that cringing and pandering, it doesn't work. Being cowards does not work. For one, of course, the Liberals keep losing elections. Victoria on the weekend, and last March, the South Australian Liberal government was also flogged despite trying to go green. And boy, it sure tried hard at that. I mean, it banned fracking for gas in the state's southeast. It offered bribes to the rich to buy electric cars. It promised emissions targets that were even tougher than the Albanese government's. Go figure that one. And it still lost. I know global warming was just one issue in that election, but this goes to the heart of the Liberal problem. And that is the Liberals are scared. They're so scared of criticism, particularly from the media left or from some, rich dinner party that they might get invited to. And in May, it was the same pathetic story. The Morrison government. It also lost, despite going green and agreeing to cut our global warming emissions to net zero by 2050, a target that Labor had been pushing for years. And of course it didn't work. I mean, they just look, to the left, they just look sneaky, and to the right, they look like sellouts. Okay? And so they still got smashed in an election where Labor promised to make so much green energy that they'll cut your electricity bills by $275. As if. And some of the most green Liberals in Parliament back then, they still lost their seats too, particularly them, to Teal independents pushing this climate scare. Yet even then, the Liberals were still told, look, your problem is you're still not green enough, you're still not left-wing enough. Well, that excuse has run dry, because you can't say that about the Liberals in Victoria, because they doubled down. They promised to cut emissions by 50% by 2030. Again, a tougher target than even the Albanese governments. They even preferenced the Greens above Labor, for heaven's sake. And they endorsed a treaty between people identifying as Aboriginal and everyone else, which sells out the fundamental Liberal principle of putting individuals above the collective. They did all that. And once again, they got flogged. Absolutely beaten. Going Labor-lite just made them look weak, second-hand and unprincipled. And it made Labor look like they've been right all along on these big issues. Now, of course, I get it, I should see the criticism of my articles in the paper at the moment, saying, me saying that the Liberals should be more Liberal, not more Labor. It looks like a recipe for suicide, I'm told, given where the media is, of course. But being more Labor sure hasn't worked for the Liberals. And what's the point of being in politics anyway if you just fight for someone else's principles and not your own? So the Liberals have to accept that global warming is one battle it can't keep dodging. Labor's racist plan for Aboriginal-only parliament, another battle it can't keep dodging. Because unless they tackle the global warming lies of the left and their fake fixes, they're always going to look like hypocrites. And unless they start pointing out that Labor's plan to divide us by race is exactly that, it's racist, they're going to lose that battle too, and then look even more discredited. So they've got to start fighting. They've got to fight for their principles, start arguing for them. And I know this work is going to take many years, just like it took many, many years for the Greens to get up this agenda of global warming. Well, it'll take years. But the Liberals can never win an argument if they don't even dare to put it. The Nationals, at least, are now trying. They may not win an election, but at least they will keep their pride.